everyone. My name is Karen Barnett, and I welcome you to another behind-the-scenes peek at my upcoming novel, When Stone Wings Fly, Smoky Mountains novel. This is going to be my 8th published book, and I am very excited to be writing a book set in the Smoky Mountains. This is the first time I've been writing about that region. And as someone from a different part of the country, I'm actually from the Pacific Northwest, but I like to write about national parks, and that's what drew me to writing about the Smokies. But as someone from a different region, I wanted to make sure that when I had characters that were from the Smokies, that they sounded authentic to their location. And many of you are familiar with the Appalachian, I don't necessarily want to call it an accent, but it's almost a dialect that they speak in that region, particularly in years past. And so when I first started writing When Stone Wings Fly, I was, just doing my rough draft, and I found my characters speaking almost what I think of as like Beverly Hillbillies, which was not how I wanted to portray these people. And so I had to step back and really do my research and make sure that the voices of those characters are authentic to the area. And one of the ways that I did this was reading novels that were set in that time period in that region and doing research online, looking up Appalachian lingo and Smoky Mountains English, and learning as much as I can about the vocabulary and the grammar, the construction of sentences in that region so that the characters would sound right. One of the best resources that I found was a blog called The Blind Pig and the Acorn. I think that's the name of it. I'll attach it on the bottom and make sure and put a link to it. But it's run by Tipper Presley, and she is a lover of all things Appalachian culture. And she writes daily about different, from cooking to gardening to language and music and culture and everything about that region. And she was a wealth of knowledge. So I spent a lot of time reading her blog, watching her YouTube videos where she actually demonstrated a lot of vocabulary and did some vocabulary quizzes. And I really enjoyed learning from her. She also was gracious enough to do a read through for me on the final draft of the novel to make sure that my characters were sounding authentic, because no matter how much research you do, there can still be mistakes. And there may still be mistakes now. I'm really hoping there aren't, but we spent a lot of time trying to get it exactly right. One of the resources that was a huge help to me was the Dictionary of Smoky Mountain English, which went out of print, and I was able to get it via interlibrary loan and just devour as much as I could that way. But they recently released a new edition. And you can see it's huge. It's quite a tome. And they have retitled it The Dictionary of Southern Appalachian English. So if you are interested in the language of this region and really want to invest in reading, it's fascinating just going through each of the words, and they will give examples of how the words were used in a sentence and the locations where they found, like actually crediting where they found those words written. So that has been a wonderful resource. So I thought it would be fun to read you some of the words that I enjoyed using in the novel and see if they are ones that you are familiar with, because you might be from that region, or maybe you're not. Maybe you're from far away and you would just like to learn some of this lingo. So either way, I think it'll be fun. And I'm going to read you the line in the novel where I use the word. Okay, so let's start with this one. Irish. And again, I'm not 100% positive on all my pronunciations. One of the fun things about being a writer is that I need to be able to read and write words. I don't necessarily have to speak them. I don't narrate my own novels for audiobooks, but I think it's pronounced Irish. I can't imagine how else you would say it. But do you know what that means? Have you heard that word before? It means basically of the weather, like a cool breezy day would be considered an Irish day. It could also refer to a person being Irish. It would mean that they're pompous or putting on airs. So in the novel, in one spot, I have a line of dialogue where she says, "It's a mite Irish for sure, but we ain't done with the warm days yet. God's just reminding us to prepare for what's to come. Okay, here's another one that I enjoyed learning, furriner. Furriner, and you can probably even guess what this means. It has nothing to do with furry animals, but it is just sort of changing the word foreigner. But the funny thing is, it doesn't actually mean foreigner. It means anyone from outside of that location. So one of my characters comes to the Smokies from New York, and they call him a foreigner because he's not from the local area. So the line in one of the lines, I think I used this one a couple times, this word, that she married this foreigner who was all cozy like with the government. Okay, here's another one. Oops, got two there. Get up, get up. And I would think, oh, we're going to get up. But this actually means to gather or assemble, to round up, or to get something ready. And so you may have heard that one before. And I have a line, a saunter through the leaves would give her the energy to get up some supper. You would also hear it as read up, I think. I've seen that written in novels. This is one that I use several times, granny woman, which can mean pretty much what it says. An older woman might be called granny. Not just your grandmother, but kind of the old woman in the holler might be called a granny woman. But it specifically also refers to midwives. The midwife in the local area would be called a granny woman, probably regardless of her age. So granny woman, let's see. Everyone trusted the holler's granny woman, so her word was considered nigh on close to the preachers for being gospel truth. Granny woman. Okay, do you know this one? Haint. Haint? Haint? I'm guessing it's haint. And that means, and it's similar to the word haunt. Okay, so a haint is a noun and it means a ghost or a spirit. And the Appalachians, particularly the Smoky Mountains area, is well known for lots of ghost stories. That's just a part of the culture there. And so I used the word, let's see, we was outlaws sneaking through the woods, then haul out and start screaming like we'd seen a haint. Haint? I don't know if I'm saying it right. Someone can correct me in the comments if you know. Oh, this one drove me up the wall. This is a common usage in the Smokies that when you hear someone say it, it makes sense. Might could. So I'll actually read the sentence. Maudie had told her expecting might could make her soppy, but she hadn't figured on crying at every fool thing. So might and could are both modal verbs. And so this would be considered a double modal verb construction. And it's not common really in most of the rest of the country, but using two modal verbs together, modal verbs would be may, might, can, could, those types of words. Using two of them together is common in this region. So I would write this in and then I would reread it and take it out because it looks so wrong. So when I'm proofreading, I kept finding myself taking these back out and then I'd have to go back and add them back in because it is right in that area. So I may run into, I was amazed that my editor didn't start pulling some of these out as well. But I may get readers who say, I don't know what you're talking about, might, could. But it is extremely common language in that area. I like this one, shank of the day. You can probably guess what that means, right? That's the late in the day, the end of the day. It was along about the shank of the day, but she hated to start without Benton at the table. Have you heard that one before? Shank of the day. I think we should all start using that. Okay, here was a fun one. This is one that I had never heard before. Some of these I'd kind of read in books or I'd heard offhand, but I wouldn't necessarily know how to use them. Sygoglin, I'm assuming I'm saying that right, Sygoglin or Sygodlin, it's written in several ways in the dictionary, is one of those ones that's like, okay, that I have never heard before. But Sygoglin means askew, off center, or crooked. And it's a fun word. You actually Google it, you will come up with some references to this word, but not a lot. So I don't think it's used anymore. So here's my line. Rosie walked around the house to the back and stopped at the edge of the clearing, studying the cabin with its porch leaning askew, all Saigoglin, as folks would say. Now, if you happen to be a writer, you may have noticed what I did there, and that was to actually define the word within the sentence. If you're going to throw a really bizarre word of dialect at your readers, it's important that your readers can determine the meaning of that word from the way you use it. And so a word that is as odd as Saigoglin, I thought it was important to actually put a line in there saying what it meant. So you saw that I wrote, or heard that I wrote, with its porch leaning all askew. So I used the word askew, all Saigoglin, as folks would say. So that's just a little trick on how to slide vernacular in and still make it understandable to readers. This one is very similar. This is my last one for today, but I liked this word as well. It means just about the same thing, slaunchways or slaunchwise or slouchways. There are like 5 different ways to write this out. So it's probably regional, different families would say it differently, but it means at an angle. So probably the similar to Saigoglin. Maybe Saigoglin's a little more falling down, and slaunchways is just like at an angle. So I had them, 2 characters looking up at a branch in a tree, and she says, "You mean the broken one hanging all slaunchways?" Again, giving the definition. So it's hanging, it's broken, you can picture what it looks like, and then I give the word slaunchways. So it was really fun to work these words in. I tried not to overload the reader, because if you put in too much dialect for people that aren't familiar with the region, it could become very cumbersome reading. So it was fun to sort of pepper it in, and hopefully I hit a nice balance of being authentic to the region and authentic to the characters without ever being insulting or offensive or trying to adopt their culture as my own. I'm certainly not trying to do that, but to give respect and give credence to the people that speak this beautiful language. They sometimes I have trouble when I hear things like from Hollywood, like Beverly Hillbillies or something like that, where it's almost insultingly done. And that's not my intent. I really wanted to show the beauty of these people, their intelligence, their strength, their faithfulness was one that came up quite often, and their kindness. So this was what I was trying to put forward with this novel. And I hope you enjoy the little bits of Appalachian language that are scattered throughout. So don't forget to pre-order. I know it sounds like, okay, I'm saying go buy the book. Why I'm harping so much on pre-ordering this year is because printing shortages, paper shortages and printing has been backed up in publishing over this past year. So this year is going to be the year it is the most important for you to pre-order your copies if you want to read it in the first month or 2 that it's out. There's a very decent chance that it will be difficult to get copies if you have not pre-ordered them. I can't say for sure which way it's going to go. But that doesn't mean you necessarily have to pre-order from the big online sellers. You are welcome to do that. It's very easy and convenient. But you could also run down to your local brick and mortar bookstore, if you still have one in your neighborhood, and ask if they will pre-order it for you, because most of them will accommodate that. They are happy to have your business and happy to work with you on that front. So talk to your local bookstore. If you do not have a local bookstore, but you still want to support a brick and mortar store, I'm going to put my store's link in the comments below, and I'll also put it on the screen in case you're watching this on my newsletter. But they're actually taking pre-orders for signed copies of When Stone Wings Fly. So if you want an autographed copy, you can actually pre-order it from my local store, and I will run in and sign them before they ship them out. Okay, so enjoy, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.